Nasroh and welcome back to my channel. Talking about culture, every country has a different culture, especially in China. In China, there are several cultures such as about non-verbal and verbal communication, food culture or dining custom, and also fashion culture. And today, I will explain about culture that exists in China. First, nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is the use of body language to convey a message. Nonverbal communication includes eye contact, facial expression, gesture, and also tone of voice. For example, greeting. Chinese greeting gestures are pretty much the same as the rest of the world. When people meet for the first time, a handshake is very common, especially on business and formal occasion.
A handshake in Chinese is called 握手. 握手. 握 is to hold and grip. 手 is hand, so 握手 to grip hands. 握手. Sometimes 握手 goes with a slight bow, which is just to lower your upper body just a little bit, like this.
Then, if there's no time to talk, you can also use just a hand wave or nod with a smile on your face. Second examples of nonverbal communication in China is hands put together. People in China like to use this body language, which means showing prayer and gratitude, or used for asking something, way to say thank you and please. So, those are some examples of nonverbal communication in China. Next is verbal communication. Verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of words to convey a message. Some forms of verbal communication are written and oral communication. For example of verbal communication in China, first, men speak louder than women. When women speak loudly, she may be considered to have bad manners. Second, seldom say no. Chinese seldom to refuse with using a direct word no. Even when show a disagreement, they will use words politely. Third, when Chinese tell the bad news, they may smile and laugh to avoid uncomfortable situation or even reduce the topic of bad news. Apart from verbal and non-verbal communication, there is also food culture or dining custom in China.
For simplicity's sake, we've divided China into 4 regions: North, South, East, and West. The food in the north, because of the cold climate, is heavy on meat and carbs. The southern seaboard is rich with seafood. And the regions around the Yangtze River Delta in the east are teeming with river fish and crustaceans. Meanwhile, the tropical southwest is lush with vegetation. Generally speaking, China has 2 main carbs, wheat and rice, and their prevalence follows a north-south divide. Rice requires a lot of water, and the south gets plenty of it, with more rain on average than the north. Therefore, rice is consumed more in the south, and the north specializes in wheat because it doesn't need all that much water. In the north, you'll see a lot of wheat noodle dishes and quite a bit of buns. In the south, you'll see a lot of fried rice, rice noodles, and rice noodle rolls.
Really? People usually hold their chopsticks with one hand and the bowl with another. But we have strict rules about how we use chopsticks. We don't stick them in our rice bowls or play with them. It's very rude.
And the last, fashion culture in China. Traditional Chinese clothes were an evolution of the long, loose, straight-cut jackets and pants or gowns. They reflected traditional Chinese aesthetic, philosophy, and social values.
The most traditional Chinese
There are
clothing.
several types
Hanfu
of
is the
clothing
oldest
in
of
China.
China's traditional clothes. According to history, Hanfu is the oldest Chinese traditional clothing, which is more than 4,000 years old. Hanfu is taken from the word Han in Chinese, which means the clothes of the Han people. At first, Hanfu was only used by nobles, but over time, all people can wear this dress. The second one is Cheongsam Shipao, the most famous traditional Chinese dress. The Cheongsam, also known as Shipao in Mandarin, is a traditional Chinese dress from the 17th century. During the 1920s until 1930s, it was called the Mandarin dress and was popularized by upscale women in Shanghai. Cheongsam is now only worn on formal occasions such as weddings, parties, and beauty pageants. Shipao are also used as uniforms in some Chinese restaurants, hotels, and islands. And the last is Tang Suite. The name Tang is taken from the word Tang Chuang, which means modern Chinese jacket during the Tang Dynasty. Since 1929, the Tang Suite has become one of the national formal wear for men. Over time, this traditional Chinese dress is known as one of the most distinctive traditional Chinese clothes.
Well, so the Chinese actually had quite strict rules, especially in terms of dining costume and behavior. Then, in terms of communication, they were not very direct when they spoke. In addition, traditional Chinese clothes are long and beautiful. Alright, those are some things I can say about the culture that exists in China. I apologize if there are any mistakes. That's enough from me. Thank you. Bye bye.